Here we go. Live episode 44 of the Lucas Grandsire podcast. I'm back. We're back. Very special guest today. It is, of course, clickbait Harry Davis. What's going on, sir? How are you?
Hello, it's been a long time coming, but finally, years in the like what 6, 7 years in the making, but I'm here.
Yeah, man. That's what we go. People tell me all the time, like, Lucas, we go back from the start. I'm like, no, we don't. Me and Harry go back from the start, but nah, we don't. But
Mm,
man, and we fought each other everywhere. The train wreck that was Cage Pages when that all went down,
mm.
MMA latest. Like, man, we go back far.
Yeah, God, I think it was Cage Pages first, and then we kind of just went on from that. I think I was with Cage Pages in 2016. I don't know if you were there before. I think you remember you actually joined after me. I can't remember, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so God, we've been through it, but hey, at least we're here now.
That's right, man. I remember like I didn't stay very long. I think I wrote like 2 articles and then I thought I was big time. I was like, here you go. This is it. I'm official. And I joined BJ Penn
Mm.
which was the wrong move because I didn't know what I was doing. And I tried to come back and who's the name of it was Danny and it was not Nick. Was it
Yeah,
Nick?
Nick. Yeah.
Yeah, Nick was like, nah, he's not coming back. So I had to watch from the outside. And then I get a message from you telling me about, everything that
Mm.
happened. Oh man, that was bad.
Yeah, I remember it all kind of blew up and it's just behind the scenes stuff. And then like one person left, and ended up like basically everyone left. And I think I think that was like 2017 we left, and then the following year it kind of just completely shut down, and there's not been any articles on there since. So kind of crazy how that happened, but it was fun whilst it lasted.
It was very fun. I didn't realize at the time like how lucky we were to have an editor like
Mm,
Danny. Like he was so
mm,
good. After every time I was like, "Hey Lucas, here's what you got to work on." Or I did an analysis piece. It was like, "Hey, make sure you do this, that." I didn't realize like not everybody is that good. Like when you have someone like that, you have to cherish them.
Oh yeah, Danny was good because that was my first. I did my own like blog, and then Cage Page is my first site, and I think I was about 18 at the time. So when I had someone like Danny, it was like, this guy is helping me in everything I do, and I'm like, I'm not the only one who's doing this for like you and other guys at the site, and he's like our age too. It wasn't like he
Yeah.
was like a veteran of the game. He was like trying to do what we're doing, like writing as well, whilst he's taking on this workload. So it must have been effort for him, and I know he's doing well now. He's commentating in New York. I think he's on ESPN Ithaca and stuff, so he's doing good.
It's crazy to me, like seeing where everybody ended up from there. Because if you
Hmm.
look, like, I mean, a bunch of people went to do MMA today. I think what was his name, Tony, sold the
Mm-hmm.
website. Now he's a Bitcoin guy. Like,
Yeah.
so many people are super successful from that, and it's a shame because they could have cultivated talent if they just stuck with it.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm trying to think who else is. I know a lot of them because as soon as we left with Cage Pages, Cage Side Press went up, and I remember I did a few articles there, and then that's when I got onto latest. But a lot of them are still there. I know like Jay Anderson's there, Eddie Law's there, etc. But yeah, God, yeah, it's weird to see how we all went different ways. But you're the one of the only ones I really keep in touch with still. So it's crazy that where we come to.
I'll never forget when you said you told Eddie Law, you're like, man, you sound just like Nick Diaz. Ever
Yeah.
since that day, every time I heard him, all I could think was like Stockton 209. I was like, yes, exactly.
Yeah, no, I remember. We all used to have some good chats in the Slack page, but I think that's kind of where it all went downhill. I
Yep.
remember. So,
Yeah, because that was the thing is that, I tried to come back and instead I ended up with Fansided, which, it was by accident. I was like, fuck it, I'm here. And I realized like their group chat, they don't play. It's literally just
mm,
news. And I remember there was talks of Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor, but it came from the Sun. And since, I follow European football, I'm like, I know the Sun is Sun is not
mhm,
good.
mhm.
So everybody was like, what do you guys think? Blah, blah. I was like, yeah, Sun's not really reliable. All of a sudden, I can't see my message anymore. And I check like my email. It's like, hey, Lucas, we don't say stuff like that here. Who do you think
Really?
you are?
Wow.
I was like, wow. And it's
Oh,
exactly the person you think it
mm,
is too. I was like,
mm.
wow, man, I'm just saying, I'm just talking shit, but okay.
Yeah, that's
Whole
crazy.
experience. Whole
Yeah,
experience
I
was bad.
know. In the Cage Page of Slack, it was like, obviously we were younger and stuff, but maybe very naive, but it was kind of more like a friends chat. I know, you also have to bear in mind, like, we were just contributing to the site. It's not like any of us were
Yeah.
getting paid and stuff. So, like, they can't really expect a work environment. We're just having a bit of fun. And also, we didn't really have like a Facebook chat. That's where we just joked around. But obviously, I know there's a few people who didn't like that, but we had fun with it.
Yeah. You showed me those messages and everything blew up and it was
Hmm.
just,
Hmm.
oh man. And just everybody went off. It was incredible. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I know. I remember that. It was, I enjoyed Cage Patches. It was my first. Again, it was like a bit sad the way it ended, but it was my first
Yeah.
proper site. A lot of the stuff we did there, like I was, doing post-fight reports, and it kind of seemed like I was like, am I doing this the right way? And like, all these years later, like I was obviously there's stuff I was doing wrong, but the base, like the foundations of it were right.
But then the thing is, if we can follow each other until we both went our separate ways because when you went bloody elbow. But
Mm.
MMA latest, I feel like that was kind of like Cage Pages, but it was another level. Like
Mhm.
Matt was obviously a great editor. Jim
Mm.
Jim was around and he was a legit person, and then kind of weirdly stopped out of nowhere as soon as Matt left, and
Yeah.
just man.
Yeah, MMA Latest was a big one, when I kind of did a few at Cage Side Press after the Cage Pages thing collapsed. And then I was like, you know what, we'll apply for MMA Latest because a lot of the writers were UK based, so it was perfect for me. And then, yeah, when I joined, I seem it sounds like I was like a bad luck charm for them. I joined and everyone kind of left. And then, I was what, like 18, 19. And then it was like really me and Matt Wells. And we were like, obviously we had some contributors and stuff. And I was actually covering an event here, covering BAMA in London. So I obviously needed to like have publish my own articles, and they needed to change your preferences for that. So I was technically an editor as soon as they did that. But I thought it would just be for that like one event. And then kind of what happened after that is I just kind of became an editor. So I was like, all these people who are writing for the site, which I was before, because it was obviously Matthew had a massive workload. He was like, can you just, get these guys' articles up? Which led to another thing. And all of a sudden I was like, I don't even really know what I'm doing here, and I'm publishing other people's work. So it was, they had a good platform. I just think it kind of, for the wrong reasons, it didn't really go anywhere. And I think it's defunct now. So
I remember like I wrote an article about John Jones and I get a message from you and you're like, hey man, just published it, good work, fixed a few things. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, why is Harry doing that? And then it was like
Mm,
once I became an editor and I realized like I'm not very good and I'm editing, I was like, that's a problem. That's how I
mm.
kind of knew from there, like, that's not good.
Yeah, because I think like I don't, I knew a few of the writers. I didn't know all of them, but I'm like, how can I be publishing these guys' work when like they'll probably know more than me at that time. So I'm like, this is kind of. But obviously, that's just because the site was kind of slowly falling apart at this stage, and they needed to get the work out and stuff. So I understand it, but yeah, I was kind of like, this shouldn't be happening. I'm like publishing people's work, and they definitely like know more than I do. So
That was the thing is it kind of led to, at some point, if you're smart enough, you take it seriously, you realize like you need an editor. You need a guy that's gonna be like, look, man, you're
mm,
making mistakes. And Matt was like that. He was like, Lucas, download Grammarly, do this, do that. And that was
hmm
very helpful. But once I was on my own, like I'm glad those articles don't exist anymore. But you read them back, you'd be like, oh my God, like, this one never happened if someone was there. So I'm pissed about certain ones because I got some really great interviews. Lawrence Larkin, Francis Ngannou that
mm.
don't exist anymore, but also, I'm kind of glad they don't exist anymore.
Yeah, I used to, funnily enough, do this thing. So, I always wanted to have like a backup of my work. It was kind of pointless, but I mean, I've still got them printed out on paper. So what I would do is, as soon as the article was published, I would just copy and paste it into a Word document. I mean, the format would be all over the place. It'd be because obviously, ads on the page, like the words would jump all over the place. But I just wanted to have a hard copy, so I literally have it like on my shelf right there. It's all the stuff from Cage Pages, all the
Oh
stuff
yeah,
from MMA Latest News. Yeah, just in paper form. But like, I obviously never really looked at it, but it'll be cool to look back on. But because like you said, you go on any of the like web links for the articles and they're gone. So it's sad, but I mean, I got them in paper form, not like you said. I'll probably be looking through them anytime soon.
I think the coolest thing at MMA latest was when they sort of gave us that freedom of like, if you guys want to reach out to fighters, if you want
Mm,
to do interviews, like when we went through our hunting down interviews phase,
yeah.
that was so much fun. We got some crazy names. We got some good. That to me was so much fun. Like you'd get certain names, you'd be like, there's no way, and then you just get
Hmm.
excited. Then you'd get scared because you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
But that was so much fun. We got some good
Uh,
ones too.
Yeah, I was such a weird because like I was like, this is very surreal. I went from like having like my first interview, obviously sorted through the Bellator PR guys who are great, and then they were like, yeah, you can kind of seek interviews yourself. I was like, right, how should I do this? So I kind of just put
Yeah.
together like a formatted message, like, hello, I'm a writer, da da da. I'd love to talk to you ahead of your fight, and just message the fighters on. I would do everything. I'd be like, find Facebook, find see if their Instagram DMs are open, find if their managers are open. And for every 10 fighters I message, one might reply. But that's all that mattered, like you get one reply. I'm like, this is a great interview. So then it would kind of went from not interviewing anyone to interviewing someone like you said, Michelle Waterson for me in a tank top. In a tank top, because for the people who don't know, I'm sure the interview is on my YouTube. Actually, it will be on my YouTube channel, but the video won't be for that reason. Um, I remember I called Michelle Waterson and I thought it was just going to be an audio interview, and she put a video on, and I was like, oh, I was like, I can't just have, I can't be the interviewer and just have her in a video on and she's not looking at anyone. So obviously I was young at the time, but I was in a vest on my bed with my iPhone, like camera moving all over the place. I mean, the interview was fine, but without the video, if you put without the video, it's fine. But you put the video on, I'm like, they're probably like, oh my God, how is this, like 50, probably looks like a 50-year-old boy getting interviews with Michelle Waterson. But, we live and we learn. I've got a half okay background, not as good as yours now, but, it's better than a vest and a shaky iPhone.
I don't know if you've seen. Oh, I mean, you probably did. Unfortunately, like I've tried to go back and watch the first sort of video interviews because there was some surprisingly big names like Mark DeCasey, Israel
Mm,
Adesanya, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh my God, how did I publish this stuff? How are they okay doing it? Like the
mm,
audio's bad, the background is crap. I mean, it just. To be fair, I was wearing regular clothes though, so I mean, I have that
mhm.
over you. But some of them, you're just like, that is crazy how we were able to book some of these guys. Like, holy shit.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's weird. I don't really know how we did it. Like, again, like the whole thing now is like, you have an interview, you know how it is, make sure you set up on time and, like
Yeah.
audio's good, la di da, you know the deal. But back then it was just, I guess we were young and naive as well. It's quite funny to look back at though. Like, I know, yeah, some of your biggest ones were like, I think it was with Flow Combat, was it not?
Yeah, that's the thing is sort of, with MMA latest, I was starting to get with big names, made the switch to Flow Combat, and the names got even bigger. So it was
Mm.
kind of like everything happened at the same time.
Yeah, I remember it was with Flow Combat because you got one with Izzy and like fun enough for the people who don't know, I remember I used to post your articles on Reddit because for some reason the
Right.
Reddit
Yes.
MMA, yeah, the MMA Reddit MMA mods are very, very strict, to put it,
Yeah.
nicely. And that was one of the ways we would get traffic though,
Yeah.
especially at a site that didn't get one. Because Reddit MMA is huge and like as long as you put like a unique spin on it. I even remember they used to have a 3-to-1 rule. So you had for every one bit of your own work you had to post 3 others. So obviously, I admit this now. I just used to find some random news and be like, right, I've posted this, this, and this. It means I can post my own one now. But those would get good interviews. And I remember like even looking at the threads on your ones, all the comments would be like some like almost like confused at your Adesanya ones. Like, how is this like teenager, like 12-year-old getting interviews with Izzy? But like they were saying like it's good, but like how does he get them? They're
Yeah.
so confused, But I think a lot of the replies were just like, you probably just reaches out. Like, you're not gonna. What's the worst thing they could do? Say no.
I'll tell you what, there's a few I've hunted down, like Israel, like the whole week leading up to his debut. And I'm like, I have to get on. This guy's
Mm,
clearly going to be a star. I have to get on there. And luckily, someone gave me his manager's email. And, because I know how emails work, I told his manager, I was like, yeah, if you want to just, I message me since you're in New Zealand. Maybe I'm in France. Maybe it's
mm.
easier. And next thing you know, I get a message, "Hey, Lucas." I'm like, "That's not my name. That's fuck it. I'll take it." And man, I was able to text them like I set up like 6 interviews with Israel. I got kind of greedy. I'm not gonna lie to you, but leading up
Yeah.
to until he fought Anderson Silva, it was just everybody's like, "How the fuck does he keep getting Israel?" I'm like, "Look, I'm gonna ride this train as long as I
Mm.
can because it won't work anymore today." But back then, it was incredible when it was happening.
I'm guessing that's what the recent tweet was about, with being called Lucas instead of Lucas.
Every time I'd be like, "Hey, Eugene," he'd be like, "Hey, Lucas," he'd be like, "Come on." And my mom was telling me, she was like, "Just spell Eugene wrong," like, a little bit of a
Oh
power
yeah.
move, like, "Hey, Huge," you know what I mean? But I can't do that. I'm not in a position to be like, strong
Mm.
arming, fucking Eugene Behrman. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was funny to me. I was just like, who do you know named Lucas? I mean,
Yeah.
seriously, crazy.
They could call you anything they want, I guess, as long as they say yes to the interview. You probably don't
Right?
care.
Yeah,
But
he'd be
yeah, I
like,
remember
"Hey."
that. That was so like it was so. It felt so. Obviously, Izzy's huge now, but like I remember when you interviewed him, I was like, God, Lucas, like I really want to interview Izzy. Could you be so like kind to get? And he was like, yeah, just message him on Skype. I literally, if I still logged into Skype, I know no one uses it anymore. I just messaged him and then I was like, oh, you know who I am, I want to interview. And he was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, but obviously now it's
No.
just different. Like I guess it's advantageous because if you ever speak to him again, say you go to an event he's fighting to, he'll probably you'd like to think he'd recognize you, maybe
Yeah,
not.
you'd hope so.
You know, but I mean, it's good to you never know where that could have gone. He could be giving you regular interviews all the time now, but you can't complain. It was at least you got him earlier on.
Here's the thing too, his manager now, Tim Simpson, that's someone I
Mm,
got in with early. Like I sent him a message like January 2018. And I was like, "Hey, I'm hoping to interview Jimmy Manuwa." I mean, it's not
mm,
very realistic, but I'm like, fucking
mm.
try it. And he's like, "Yeah, I've got this guy, Leon Edwards. He's doing some media."
Wow,
Yeah,
yeah,
let me get this Leon guy. It was before
yeah,
he fought like some German dude that thought he was Jamaican or something, Peter Sabota or
yeah.
something like that.
Peter Sabah, yeah,
I didn't remember what the story was, but it was kind of weird. Like you're fighting a Jamaican and you're saying you're a
yeah.
Jamaican, whatever. And then before you know it, it was like, there's a connection with Tim and, you could hit him up and ask for stuff. But Yeah, as soon as
Mm,
he gets the champions though, that's a little bit different. Everybody starts getting stingy and I think
mhm.
Israel, like, up until he became champion, gave everyone the time, and then he was like, "Fuck you guys, I'm gonna do my own thing."
I mean, yeah, it's understand. Obviously, because you think he. I mean, there's probably a lot of people like you that he gave,
Yeah,
regular interviews. But it's hard when you get champion. I'm sure they obviously are probably in their contract they have to do a certain amount of media. But when they're champion, I guess like why do more than that? You know?
yeah. Well, I mean, you gotta think too, like, is it worth it? Like, you do an interview with
Hmm.
me, let's be realistic. Like, maybe it's a little bit different, but are the views really justifying that
Yeah.
you gave me 15 minutes of your time? Probably not. So that, you have to be real with yourself, but it is cool to look back and say, I got it. The only thing that I hate is just the quality wasn't good. You wish you
Mm,
could go back and do it again today. Like, look, there's a real microphone. It's not my
yeah.
phone recording it. Like, look, actually, I'm not looking off to the side, but like, fuck it. That's something you can say that you did.
Mm. Yeah. No, it is crazy, and I mean. It would be nice if they kind of recognized and like kept you on as a regular interview. But yeah,
Yeah.
like you said, I mean, and it would also be nice if like we knew what we were doing back then, so we'd
Yeah.
like kind of be like, yeah, this is my like high quality, good microphone, good audio, good video interview. But instead, it's like just focus on the fighter, don't focus on my video. It's kind of what you're telling people.
Yeah, I mean, at one point, like I was doing it from my apartment, and the apartment, like it's not huge, so I have my bed in the background. I don't have a choice.
Mm,
Enough people were telling me about how I made my bed and criticisms on how I can do better that I was like, nah, I'll do it from my kitchen. I can't, I
mm,
can't have people critiquing my technique on how I threw my pillow on my bed. It's like
mm.
that's a problem.
Yeah, no, it is crazy, and I mean, that's the thing with putting stuff on is like you will get critiqued for everything. Like if you don't have this right, if even if you had a good background, if you asked the wrong question, like
Yeah,
they'll pick on that instead. But it comes with it. It's something that I've kind of learned since going to the mirror because they're a big site. Is like of course everyone reads like comments on their own work, but sometimes you just gotta like look and just almost laugh and be like, at least someone's actually commenting on your stuff, like regardless if it's hate or not. It's like it's attention, so whatever.
going back to those interviews, like I think the craziest one I ever got at MMA latest was Francis Ngannou. Like
Mm,
I remember that one. I put it in the group chat. I was like, I got Francis, and Steven was like, get it on video, get it. Like, oh, hold
yeah.
on, man. I was like, hold on, I don't know how to do all that shit, man. I'm just happy I got this. Like, I have his phone number. Like, what the fuck? Like that
Hmm.
one, that one was insane, and I was tricky for that one because I found out Fernan Lopez was following MMA latest. So I sent him a message in
Oh, yeah.
France. I was like, let me be a little slick, like,
Ah,
bonjour, and
yeah.
and he hit me back in English, like, "What can I do for you?" So I was like, "All right, fuck it," whatever. And and I got Francis like with MMA latest before the what the title fight, I think before Stipe. And I
Oh,
thought I
yeah.
was hot shit, man. I was like, "This is it. I'm part of the club." And then a media member was like, "We all talk to Francis. Why does anybody give
Uh,
a fuck about yours?" I was like, all right, damn." But
yeah,
I
I mean,
talked
you joined the club, you know?
I mean, that's the thing. You want people to respect you and not like, who's this child that
Mm.
somehow got Francis's phone number and got his time for 10 minutes? You wanted to be like, oh, of course, Lucas with MMA
Mm.
latest news, but nah, not at the time.
Yeah, I mean, it does. I mean, it's a good thing you spoke to him now. I feel like
Yeah,
sometimes you kind of do have to like pinch yourself. Like I didn't actually have an exclusive with Francis, but like we had a kind of like a round table. So for people who don't know how that works, you basically get like one or two questions, or like there's like a group of like 10, 10, 15 reporters. You all get to ask them a question each. And I was kind of like, right, I've got this time with Francis. Like, I need to ask like a good question. So like obviously researched it and stuff. And then obviously it's pinned to my Twitter. People can go watch it. Like I asked him the question about his coach because I was like, why is no one asking this? Like his
yeah,
coach had literally said the day before, like he looks to France like a son, and I don't know, like obviously, when as soon as he said what, and I was like, oh, like in the back of my head. What I was thinking was, please, like, tell me he actually did say this, because like if I said
yeah,
like he said this and he didn't say it, I'd be like, oh my god, like my career's over. I've just, it's that is clickbait, Harry. Like you said, I've just said something that he's just not said. So then I said it again, and then straight after the interview was done, I looked. I was like, "Please, just look, like, tell me I'm not going
yeah,
crazy." I just looked to make sure the comments were real, and they were real. And I was like, "Oh, thank God!" And I put the clip on my Twitter account and like went to bed. And then next morning, I was like, "Oh my God!" I expected it to get like I don't know, like like 50 likes because it was a funny clip and stuff. It was the exact same clip as like he did an interview I don't know how long ago, and I think it was with Aaron. He's like, "What the fuck is that?" And he said the exact
oh
words,
yeah,
and then I looked, and my Twitter was going crazy and everyone was laughing. I was like, it's exactly like what I wanted from it. And like you said, that just kind of when people go on my Twitter now and they see that with Francis, it does give you that bit more professionalism. Like you spoke to these guys, and with a okay background.
yeah. Now I had that recently when I talked to Rashad Evans. Like today, interviews like no big deal. You know what I mean? It's like you just
Mm,
sit down at the right time and you just knock them out. But Rashad, I was pretty excited about that one. I was like, those
mm,
are guys that you were fans of before becoming media. Because now we're not supposed to be fans of people, but that
mhm.
was like before, like I was watching Rashad on TV, so that one was one of the rare where you're like, holy shit, I'm about to talk to Rashad.
Mm. Yeah, like I started watching MMA quite late. Like I was, so I'm not really. It's hard to think off the top of my head. Like I've never been because I'm so focused on I'm doing like speaking to people. Like even like Francis, I can't like kind of fanboy in the moment. Like my whole focus is like right, get your
Yeah,
question out
exactly.
clearly.
Yeah.
Speak clearly. After it, you can kind of be like, whoa, I just spoke to like you. I just spoke to Rashad Evans. But like during that time, especially because you record as well, you don't want to be like, oh my god, I watched your fights before. Like you're
Yeah.
a
No.
journalist. You do
No.
have to be professional. But yeah, like I kind of feel like my first event was that poster right there is Silva Diaz. So like I was not one of these people who are watching MMA. Like obviously Rashad was still fighting then, but like he wasn't like a
He
champion and
came
stuff.
back. He came back from injury, and it just wasn't the
Mm,
same. Yeah.
mm. But yeah, I've yet to kind of really have that. Like I don't really know who you're thinking off the top of my head. Like if I interview someone, I'd be starstruck. But then again, even though I might be, I just you try really hard not to show it. Like you, Rashad, you just can't show that like fanboyism.
It's weird. It's like you go into a zone. You're like,
Mm,
before it's like, holy shit, Rashad. You sit down and it's like, all right, Rashad Evans is this person that I'm talking to.
mhm.
I know what I want, the points I want to talk about. And then afterwards, like, all right, that was a
Yeah.
cool moment. Obviously, I used the interview to try to get a free T-shirt, just because you might as well. But I don't think I'm getting a free T-shirt from him. But I'm trying. You want to toe that line of being professional and being entertaining at the
Mm.
same time. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's exactly like you said. Like I have always like right here like a list of questions like on a bit of paper, and I will go through them. But sometimes I just do have to think like obviously you want what's relevant, and you
Yeah,
don't need to be asking about oh like when did you start? And like, everyone kind of knows that they can find that stuff online. Like, and sometimes that does involve asking the questions that you think like oh they might not like this or that they've probably been asked this a million times. Just like even for example, just like the whole Jake Paul thing. Like if Jake Paul says he wants to fight this guy, like I might not want to ask him about that, but it's what's relevant. You kind of
yeah.
almost have an obligation to do it. But like yeah, you almost do forget that you're speaking to at the end of the day like a person. So and I feel like at the start when I was speaking to people that was kind of hard to do that, and because I was so fixated, no matter what they said, I'd be like, okay, read the next question,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, exactly.
But like nowadays, like I've some of the best really like lines that I've actually used have been through following up and stuff. So I guess you kind of learn that it's just doing it more and more.
Well, the thing is, I was with MMA World, which I don't know if you follow them or not. Gigantic YouTube channel,
Oh,
gigantic fan base, love to shit on me while I was there. And the thing is, you can take certain things. They're like, your audio is shit. I
mm,
don't like hearing it, but you're right. I can do something about that. And they're like, oh, this guy sounds like he's reading questions. It sounds like that because that's exactly what I'm doing. So I was like, okay, let me try to do it without questions. But
mm,
it's tough because you go based on what the fighter tells you, and sometimes
mhm,
you'll miss important news bits that other people can pick up in quotes, and it just
mm,
at first, I was terrified. It was like interviewing Brendan Ward again for the first time. You're just
yeah,
sitting there sweating, and you're like, remember who this person is.
mhm,
Ask the right question. But now today is no big deal. But back then, you get sweaty, you get nervous, and then I remember my first interview. Mentioned it was Brendan Ward. I was sweating. I was pacing around my house, and I was saying corny stuff like, do you want to be an MMA journalist? Do you want to do this? You have to do stuff like this. I mean, it's just ridiculous looking back on
mm.
that stuff.
Yeah, no, I remember mine. Who did I told someone this story recently. I think it was my colleague Donna. Um, my first interview I did was with a guy called Jose Saya. He fought. No one will probably know he is. No disrespect to him because
What
he
was
fought for.
was he with Cage Pages at Summit? Was it Combate who used to
Yeah,
sit
he was
over
with. Wow,
interviews?
there we
Yeah.
go. I mean,
Yeah.
someone knows who he
Yeah.
is. But obviously he's not like high level. But yeah,
No,
he was
no.
with
Yeah.
Combat. Maybe yeah, he was. I don't know how I got him. It's probably just on an email and just like a list of fighters to speak to. But yeah, I was like, oh my god, I can. I was like, I'll speak to anyone. Like this is my first ever interview. I don't care who it is, even if I find their fight information off some weird page. Like I don't care. Like he was like. He was okay, but like it was my first interview. That's what mattered to me. So I was like, right, get all the questions down. And I didn't even think about this when I was doing it. I just sent my number to the PR guy, and I got a call from like American number. Obviously, I'm in the UK, so I looked at my phone bill afterwards. I was like, oh my god, like I've just been on the phone for like 20 minutes to an American number, and I got charged like 20 quid, which is like I don't know, like $35. But I was kind of like, you know what? I don't even care because I've done an MMA. Like I've done an MMA interview. Like I was kind of proud of it. But yeah, it's weird looking back on it. I did it over the phone. Like I could have just said, "Can we just do it through WhatsApp?" But I was so
Yeah.
fixated. I was just like, I don't really care. So.
I had something similar with Israel because the first time I talked to him was over the phone. Then after that, it was Skype. And the thing is, I wasn't thinking. I was in France, called a New Zealand number, And it wasn't until a month later my grandfather was like, "Who the fuck are you calling in New Zealand that's costing me over 100 euros?" I'm like, "I don't know anyone in New," and
Oh,
then I was like, "Oh no." And
mm,
that's back when, I was in university and stuff, and there's,
mm,
"What is this waste of time MMA stuff?" How do you
mm.
explain to them like, "Oh, I did a
Yeah.
15-minute interview with Israel in New Zealand, and now I have to pay 100 euros for it." Just ridiculous.
I think even if you showed like them now to people who don't really, know about MMA, you'd be like, oh, look at him now, like he's got 5 million Instagram followers. They'd be like, yeah, like and like, because I mean, obviously Israel's a big fighter and stuff, but like I was speaking to a friend, who, even in New Zealand, like MMA's like not really a big like rugby is their big sport. Like even when Izzy won on the weekend, like it's not on the front page or anything. It might be in the sports section, but like so like you said to us like the fact that you interviewed Izzy, like hell, I might have paid 100 euros back then, even if like I knew it was paid, even if I knew it was that expensive, I probably would have done it. But like, yeah, trying to prove it to someone who doesn't have a clue is like, you're almost like selling them something that you just know they're not going to buy.
France was the worst for that, like, in terms of nobody knowing anything, 'cause, I don't really talk about covering MMA in my personal life, but every now and then
Mm,
something pops up, and all people knew was, Mayweather versus McGregor. That was
mm,
it. And it was like, "What is that, some kind of kung fu?" And then I don't wanna sit here and sell you MMA for, like, an hour or so. You'd be like, "Ah,
mm,
yeah, it's a thing," but it was the worst. Even French people, because Francis Ngannou used to pretend to be French at one point before he was like, "Ah, fuck it, I'm from Cameroon," but even then, you're like, is this French heavyweight? I'm trying to sell Francis
mm.
Ngannou to the southwest of France, and nobody's buying it 'cause nobody gives a shit.
Mm. Yeah, it's weird that you say that because I literally had an email from just some university student in France. He was kind of doing some like stuff for his dissertation, and it was all about like French MMA and stuff. And even though it's legalized, I think like what January 2020, he was like just saying, I kind of it's all about development of MMA in France. And I was just saying to him, I don't really know, maybe you know more like how when it's going to become a mainstream sport. I even interviewed Chet Congo the other day, and he was kind of confident that it would be like an MMA sport, but doesn't know how long, because the
Yeah.
whole violent stuff. And I don't know really. Maybe you know about like MMA in France more. I know they've got areas FC and stuff, but I'm guessing like the general public probably like when the UFC was about, just look at it as like violent.
Well, the thing is, France has like a history in martial arts. Like judo is big over there.
Yeah.
Probably not the best example, but a lot of people box and stuff like that. So
Mm,
it makes no sense for it not to be bigger. And I think we need like our version of Conor McGregor. And I love
yeah.
Cyril Gann, but that's he doesn't talk like that. You know what I mean? He's our Anthony Joshua, literally, when you look at him. But
Mm,
we need that guy that everybody's gonna be behind. And I don't know, but it made me think too of I don't know if you watched the press conference with Francis versus the French media.
yeah.
The
Oh
the
my
whole
god.
time the whole time I'm like, "You guys," like, I was in France during Francis Ngannou's rise, so I
Mm,
know who covered him and who didn't. And all of you guys right here like, "Ooh, why don't you represent France?" Like, you guys did not exist, 4 or 5
mm.
years ago or wherever it was, like, and still probably don't even cover anybody else.
Yeah, that's that because he was basically saying that. I think I even spoke to when Casey O'Neill. I can't remember the word for choose for it, but like it's almost like when Francis wins, he's French, and he loses, he's not like
Yeah,
Cameroonian. Like they'll hop on the bandwagon when he's doing well. I don't know why that is. Like it's a weird one. Obviously, he's fighting, like you said, Cyril. So maybe it's because of that. Maybe that he kind of understandably Cyril was like the poster boy. But I don't know. It would have been interesting, like if Francis was fighting someone else to see if the French media, especially at that event maybe would be less, harsh on him, and especially because that journalist literally like misquoted him, and the
yeah,
fact that Francis actually called him out on that, like, and bear in mind, English is his first language, and he was like so picked up on that because the guy
yeah.
was like translating quite fast, and he picked up on that, and it was like, oh my, as soon as I was watching that, I was just like, I was like, if I was in that journalist's shoes right now, I would be like, oh my god,
You
I've not just done
just
that.
disappear, just stop
Yeah,
existing, just,
yeah. Because that was bad. Because even he tried to like fair enough, he tried to stand his ground, but like Francis was not having it. Like he was just like kind of giving him blunt replies, and I was like, I bet he just sat down like, oh god.
Oh yeah, you feel the cringe. You're like, oh man, he
Hmm.
thought he thought he did something. He was like, I'm gonna drop this line on Francis Ngannou in front of my whole country, and it just Francis had time that day. He was ready.
Mm. Have you ever had a moment like that in an interview where you've kind of came into it, maybe not necessarily like been called out, but like you just thought like it would go really well and it just didn't?
Yeah, but not anything like that, but just where it's
Yeah.
flat. You know what I mean? Where you think like, oh, I'm
Mm,
gonna have a great rapport with this person, and we're gonna have good chemistry, and it's gonna be good, and you finish and like, whoo, that was flat, or your timing's off. Like some people they talk weird. Like Chase
mm.
Hooper has this thing where he'll pause as if he's done talking and then keep talking.
Uh,
That's impossible. He'll be like, yeah, man, that's what I think about the situation. And then in your mind, you're waiting for the pause. And you're like, fuck. and I'm
Mm.
interrupting him for 10 minutes, and you're just like, I thought it would go so much better, and it just completely messed that one up. Why do you have one? Is that what you have, a precise one in mind?
Kind of, yeah. I was interviewing. I mean, I don't know really. Like, it was still okay and stuff. But I was interviewing Demetrius Johnson. Like, it's crazy. It's one of my most exciting interviews. Oh my god, I'm speaking to like Demetrius
Yeah.
Johnson. This is when he was about to fight in one. But I think he was about to fight Adriano Moraes. But then it got like delayed and stuff because of
Yeah.
coronavirus.
Yeah.
But I was interviewing about him, and obviously, like I made the stupidest mistake. Like for some reason, I thought he was playing lots of like Warzone before. Like I was just researching. I was like, you know what? Like instead of just joining and be like, "Hello, how's your training going?" I'd be like, "Oh, like I saw you were playing like Warzone recently." He's like, "No, I've not played that in like over a year." And I was just like,
Oof.
"Oh god!" Like I was just like, "Oh," I was like, "Oh," I just stumped me completely. And I was like, I was just kicking myself. I was like, "How did I don't get that so wrong?" And then like for the rest of the interview, I don't know. I was kind of speaking like I know you spoke to him about the Cejudo stuff. I was kind of just trying to talk to him about the UFC because like obviously one's big and stuff, but the fact that like he built his legacy in the UFC, like he's new in one. So I was kind of like, what's your thoughts on like the flyweights and like Henry Cejudo jumping around? He was just kind of like oh I mean fair enough. He's like, oh I don't fight for the UFC, so I don't really want to talk about that. And I was just like, I was like, it's just, yeah, it just didn't go as well as I expected. Nothing bad on his part, which is fair enough, because that stage is over in his career and he doesn't want to talk about it. Some other fighters may, but he just didn't want to.
You know what? That reminds me of the first time I talked to Aljamain Sterling, which was the MMA latest. And Aljamain's a cool guy and everything. He's a tough interview. People have never talked to him, don't realize it. But I remember I was excited. I was like, here we go, Aljamain. There's so much stuff to talk about. He was so dry. I was like, hey
Mm,
man, are you excited for this fight? Yeah, man, just have to go out there and win. I was like, oh no. And so the
mm,
interview is winding down and it's just getting drier and worse. It's
mm,
like, well, if you didn't want to do it, why? And then I was like, oh, I see you don't have a manager anymore. Like, what's going on? 15 minutes just went completely off on first round management and
oh my
everything, like, and those
god.
guys. And then, the thing that's back when we didn't, well, at least I didn't know how to like ask a follow-up question. So it's
Yeah.
just, well, my script says I have to thank you for your time. And like today, I would have jumped all over that. Back then, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Where was this? Like, we
Mm,
did 10 minutes of dry stuff. Oh, where was this at?
mm,
That's things like that where you think like, oh, this person has to be a good interview, and it just
mm.
doesn't click.
I think, yeah, sometimes like the thing we have to remember is like, everyone like obviously, like I said, they are only humans. Like, say they agree to an interview like a week before and they've had
Yeah.
like a long day and they just can't be bothered. It's like, oh, you might catch them on a good day, you might catch them on a bad day. I actually do think like when had the brief, chance to speak to Francis during fight week, I don't know what, like, this is maybe just my interpretation. I got like a feeling like he was like really frustrated. Like, for example, like there was a reporter on the call. He had said several times in interviews, like me and Cyril, like we trained together like 2 or 3 times. Like
Yeah.
everyone says we were training partners. We literally trained together 3 times. It was for a fight and that's it. Like we weren't friends, we weren't training partners. So he like as soon as his call happened, like he got a question like, oh, obviously, you guys spent hours together in the gym. And he just cut the reporter off and was like, no, we're not trained. Like we've trained together 3 times. And I was just kind of like, maybe that's just because he was getting the same. Like it's like someone telling you something isn't true over and over again. That's maybe why he was. I feel like if I asked him the wrong question, I'd be like, you said, just like please disappear, because like I would just get roasted on the spot. But like that's what I mean about like I just wanted to get my question right, because I could
Yeah.
feel like obviously it was a few days before his fight, everyone was kind of writing him off and stuff. Is like it was the last fight on the deal. And then I felt like if I asked him the wrong thing, I was just going to get absolutely slated. But thankfully, I didn't. So,
That's the thing that's a theme I'm noticing with more and more fighters. Like Derek Lewis is famous about it, where he's like, I don't do media because you guys all ask me the same shit. And if you
yeah.
listen to like the biggest outlets, it's literally the same thing from everyone. And so,
Mm,
how do you convince them, like, hey, you've never heard of me, but I
mm,
promise I'm not going to ask you, what are your thoughts on the matchup and how's the weight cut? But I'm
mm,
seeing that more and more. And I guess I can't blame these guys for saying, look, I'm tired of answering the wrong stuff,
mm,
especially with Francis, where it's like, how many times am I going to clear it up? Like, it just,
mm,
I get it. On a lot of these guys, I definitely get it.
Something I try and do, obviously I get, there's talking points and stuff like his contract. Like, obviously I'm going to talk to him about his contract, but what I will do is say like, right, what has he done an interview like this week? If he has, I'll go and like watch it and just see what he has been asked. Like, so that way I can't ask him the exact same thing. It might, he might give an answer to the question, and I'll like, I can write down a follow up, but it's not the exact same thing. But obviously, like you said, I feel like that's why they do get frustrated, because literally with that fight week for Francis, he was getting asked about, is this any different because you used to be training partners? Like all the time. And he
Yeah.
had said like, and he literally said like, we weren't training partners. We trained together like 3 times. And obviously, him and they had that kind of thing at the press conference where like they always argued over what a training partner was, and
Yeah.
Cyril looked like almost quite sad. But I,
Yeah.
it was quite funny. I was just like, oh, it shows you how nice of a guy he is. But yeah, it was funny. But like I said, it just all goes down to I try and watch their previous interviews and just avoid asking them the same thing.
I do the opposite because I feel like if I watch it, I'm gonna get influenced by it because I'm like, "Ooh,
Mm,
he said something interesting. Now I'm gonna want to ask him
mhm,
about it." And so it's like I just go in there blind. I mean, do my
mm,
research, obviously, but I'm like,
yeah.
that way won't accidentally copy anyone because it's true. I mean, if it's fight week and everybody's asking you about your weight cut, you're like, bro, who gives a shit? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna find out when I weigh in. Like, does anybody actually care about that? But I think a lot of it is people want to have that exclusive quote. Like he says
Mhm,
he's not training partners. We've heard it from 7 different websites, but now I
yeah.
need to have that exclusive quote too.
Mm. Yeah, no, I get you, It's it's a hard one. I guess that's why they are like saying I don't want to do media and stuff. Like I think was it Izzy? Yeah, Izzy said before his fight, he was like, now that I've got my own I don't know if you was it I don't know if you were about to talk to it. Like he's like, oh now I've got my own, like YouTube channel so people can't like kind of twist my stuff and shit. Like I could
Yeah,
you
I
used the
I,
word
re- I replied to it. I replied to it actually. He was like, "What was it? Interrogations from
that was it.
weirdos."
Yeah,
No, I
yeah,
was like, "Oh, I thought you said it was endearing. What happened?" So,
yeah.
but
Yeah, I
but
get
yeah,
it. It's
but
like
that's
it
that's
comes
why.
with it. It comes with
Well, that's why they do their YouTube channels too. Like you're seeing like Sean
Mm,
O'Malley and stuff. They do their
mm,
YouTube channel. People pull their quotes, and there you go. You don't have to do media. You can literally
mhm.
just talk to your friends in a safe space, kind of.
I feel like that, not like not being selfish, but at the same time, yeah, I am. Like, I feel like that's actually kind of like bad for media people because
Yeah,
you see it with, like Bisping, Paddy Pimblett's got one now, like Izzy's got one. Like, if these guys have kind of realized now, like, you know what, like I don't even need to do media. I can just
yeah,
upload my own vlogs, get my own brand, get my own views. Like don't know if they're getting paid for it, like they might not be, whatever. But at the end of the day, they have their own brand. So like, why do they need to do interviews with us? So it's kind of like a good idea on their behalf. Not encouraging like all of them to do
sure.
it because I want to still speak to them, but yeah, it's kind of a good idea for them because again, like I've done so many, like not so many, but countless articles on like Bisping saying stuff because he like oh my god, Chael Sonnen, like the amount of done his is just crazy. Like Chael Sonnen is like smart because he will just put up so many videos about the current topics and
Yeah,
like obviously in my form clickbait Harry style like Hamzat Chimaev should do this dot 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 kind of stuff like that. But again, like it works because the sites pick
yeah.
up on it and it's like whereas that might be an exclusive. Like if I got that, I'd be like, oh my god, I've got an exclusive with Chelsea and all this. He just puts it onto his YouTube channel and everyone can use it, which is actually better for him as well because it's not just one site. Everyone's going to use it.
But Chael's the worst about it because he'll literally just make shit up. Like, how many times?
Yeah.
Like, I remember I wrote an article about, like, I try to be transparent because I don't trust Chael, but I was like, Chael is saying that the UFC has found an opponent for Nick Diaz, and he's like, oh, he's gonna fight Kevin Holland. I was like, I don't trust him because he'll just make shit up on the spot. Patty Pimblett and Cowboy, he can pretend like that was gonna happen, but we saw what happened. Patty's fighting someone most people have never heard of. So
Mm,
I'm careful with him. I always try to, make it clear that this is something Chael's saying. That's not something official that's being reported because he'll just say whatever.
yeah, that is funny. I feel like he can get away with it because that's his whole persona. I
Yeah.
watched this clip the other day. This is quite crazy. It's like typical Chael to do this. Chris Lieben was telling the story. I don't know if you heard it, but basically like after like one of their like, fight or something, Chris Lieben like didn't have much money and like he's trying to make money and he had like told Chael all these like crazy ideas and like crazy stories, sorry, in his life. And Cher was like, I'll tell you what, I'll give you like $100 if I can buy this story from you. But
Yeah.
like the catch is like you can't tell it ever like again. It has to
Yeah.
be my story. So like he would go around telling this crazy story, like, oh my granddad did go into this. And like Chris Lieben obviously watching it said he was laughing and stuff because he knows it's his. And I'm just like, who thinks of that? Like who
That's
is
so
like, I'm
smart.
gonna buy that is smart to be fair. I said I'm gonna buy this story off you for like that's only like Cher or like I can think of that because it was I mean it sounds quite crazy, but it's actually quite smart.
I know when I went to Sports Kita, it didn't last very long, ended badly, but when I was there, like all of their stuff is we
Mm,
found quotes from all of these videos. And I kind of had an issue because it's like when I have to write a serious article about something Brendan Schaub said, I have kind of a problem about that. Like the guy can't pronounce podcast, and now I have to make a serious article about, Brendan Schaub claims this. Like some of those, it's like, do we really have to pull stuff from these people? Like some of these guys, like Patty, I get it on certain things,
mm,
especially he says something about Jake Paul, we have to, but some guys, it's like, come on, like, am I really gonna take a quote from Brendan Schaub trying to skateboard one time? Like, who gives a shit? Like, it's crazy how successful these people are being.
mm.
Just 10-minute video, we're just talking about whatever.
Yeah, I think it's just because, like you say, like, Brendan's kind of like a big one in MMA history. Everyone likes to hate on him. But, like, again, it's because it's almost like he gets so much hate, people care about what he says. And then,
Yeah.
like, he says something like, I think he was speaking today about, like, how Hamzat could be a next McGregor. And it's like, those comments, like, people will, like, be like, whoa, who said this? And it's like, oh, it's Shaw. But, like, I mean, but it's still,
It
it's
takes the
still,
steam out of it. Yeah.
yeah, does take the sting out of it, but, like, again, it's a hard one really because he's got a good brand going, everyone likes to hate on him, like, again, I know he can't say stuff like, pronounces drawl and this, but, like, it's kinda crazy, like, for someone like and he was, like, he beat guys in the UFC and stuff, but, like, since then, he's got, like, his own brand really, like, below the belt stuff, the whole, like, fit boy stuff, like, it's kinda crazy, you look and think like, "Geez," like, yeah, I know he can't, like, pronounce, like, certain words and stuff, and, like, some you get these, like, I know, like, Bohachina, Depot on Twitter.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, like, the clips are just, like, hilarious, like, God forbid, like, me and Yara got that big, because like, if I had moments like that of myself and I just, like, looked up, I'd be like, "Oh my god," because you think this is, like, what we do this for, like, an hour, like, imagine doing that, like, this, like, 7, like, every day a week. You'd see
Yeah.
yourself all the time on there, like, all the time.
Oh man. And the problem with some of the way Brendan Schaub says stuff is I'll find myself saying it like you're not a drawl B or TJ
Yeah.
Dillashaw, and then you're just like, oh, nice guy, never met him, and you're like, nah,
Yeah.
I shouldn't be saying shit like this.
Yeah.
It's his fault.
It's almost become like, yeah, like you said, like, if you said that to someone, they'd be like, "What?" But, like, it's like him, it almost becomes his own brand. It's quite funny actually.
But the thing too is people criticize him, but there is something to be said about the brand, like the fact that he can
Mm,
just sit in a chair, talk about MMA with stuff he's never researched and still get
mm,
like six-figure views and stuff. Like it's
mhm.
crazy. And then you try to think like, how can I do that? But the issue is I don't really know Joe Rogan and I never fought in the UFC, so we're kind of far apart on that. But there's definitely things you can pull, even though everybody hates him.
Oh yeah, for sure. Sean is like a funny one. Like, I used to love watching the stuff where it'd be like, yeah, like he'd say something, and be like, "Oh, this guy's like, I don't think you ever win." And then Joe would be like, "No, I think he's great." And he'd be like, "Oh yeah, 100%, I agree." It was just that. It's just. Do you know what? For someone like him as well, I think the reason why he's big is because, like, again, it's laughing over it. He actually is comedic, and even though he doesn't mean it to be, like, it just is like. For some reason, he might completely have the wrong thing. Like, he's trying to be, professional stuff, but it comes off funny and people want to watch it.
I remember 'cause sometimes I tune in, like, you have enough podcasts, you just whatever. What am I going to listen to? Below the Belt. And there was one where he was giving betting advice. And I was like, man, if you're taking betting advice from Brendan Schaub, who literally just found out 10 minutes ago who's fighting, you're a fucking idiot. Like,
Yeah.
I get it's a sponsor, but if you're listening to that, like, really, like, people like that, you sort of have to put them into context. Like, if you're coming to him
Mm,
for hard hitting, like, analysis, you're doing the wrong thing. You go to Dan Tom, like, sure, that's the right kind
mm,
of person, but should you really be getting stuff like that from Schaub? Like, I feel like you just got to put people. Some guys are entertainment, and some guys are more like informative.
mm. Yeah, for sure. Like, I even saw, like you said, Dan Tom. Like, the card last weekend was like hard to pick. Like, it was
Oh
like,
yeah.
again, like, I had like one title fight, but like all the ones I was like, Jesus, like Cannonier Brunson. I don't know Cannonier. I was like, of course that was wrong. I like think Dan Tom got one pick wrong on the whole card, and I'm like, if I'm going to anyone for better advice, I'm going to him, not like Sharp. But like you said, yeah, I kind of have to categorize him. Like someone like, if I want betting stuff, I go to someone like Dan Tom. If I want to like watch somebody, a former UFC heavyweight mispronounce stuff, I go to Sharp.
But people disrespect his career though, man. He has some legit
Oh yeah.
wins. Like he
Mhm.
has some really bad losses, but like
Mm,
knocking out Mirko Krokop, like I
mhm,
don't care if you hate the guy, man. You got to give him his respect. Especially
mm,
like the highlight is him bouncing his head off the canvas. Like it stings, but you have to give him his respect for stuff
mm.
like that. I mean,
Yeah.
seriously.
I know, yeah, I know, obviously, like, I can't remember what it was over. Maybe it was the whole, like, Rousey stuff with Dana, like, I remember
Oh yeah,
Dana was saying,
Eskimo
like, "Oh."
brothers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember Dana was saying, like, this guy was like was, like, got knocked out X amount of times UFC, but I'm like, I could have sworn, like, he was a top, like, it's not like, again, it's crazy to think now, but he was a top heavyweight, like, you don't knock out Mirko Cro Cop by luck. He's a legit guy. It's weird now because, again, I didn't really watch it when he was a contender, but, like, yeah, I look at his below the belt stuff now, and then I'm like, this guy was actually like a good heavyweight fighter. People don't give him the props. It is funny, like, because he's comedic now, you laugh and stuff. But it's kind of crazy, like he generally was.
Or the thing too is that he likes to. I mean, comedians lie, but his thing is it's tough to lie when we watched your career happen. And he's like,
Mm,
"Yeah, I walked away after Travis Brown because I was done." And I kind of got into MMA the same time you did, and I'm like, "Well,
mm,
I remember you saying that with the Roybach deal, you didn't want to come back, and he was going to drop
mm,
down to light heavyweight and fight John Jones." Which today we say that, and you're like, "What the fuck?" But at the time, you were like, Brendan Schaub's athletic, he can do it. Like, so
mm.
or Kenny Florian's one too. Like he's so like when you watch him in his suit and he's well coiffed and everything, you forget that some of these guys, like, oh yeah, these guys at one point were some of the baddest men on the planet.
Yeah, for sure. Like I didn't really watch, Florian today, but like someone like Bisping, like I remember when Bisping won the belt, and obviously I guess a lot of like I don't really know, like obviously people get into MMA like all the time, but like a lot of the new guys, because think he retired after I think the Gaston loss, which
Yeah.
is like late 2017. So so like you say, people getting into MMA, for example, after Mayweather McGregor, will only see him in a suit. And then they don't see like the
Yeah.
fact that even Shaw, like I know he's rarely in a suit, but like he was actually fighting like the best heavyweights, like legitimately the best heavyweights. He might be like a bit of a clown, here and there, but he was fighting the best heavyweights, and it goes just for the same with Florian, or Kenny Florini, etc. And all the other guys. So
I think it brings me to this point too, where we were talking about how we got into MMA. Like, all these
mm,
people are like, we've been watching it since 1993. Like, we're in
yeah,
our early 20s. There's no way we could have done that. And so people they
mm,
give us flack, but I think we got into MMA at the right time, like
mm,
that people normally do. Around 15, 16, stuff like
mhm,
that. Like, how many 8-year-olds do you know are talking about Randy Couture? You
yeah,
know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh,
mm,
you guys are still new. It's like, yeah, but you probably got into it at the same age that we did. So
mhm,
we're going to be that generation that's going to, well, hopefully, replace some of these guys
mm.
too.
Yeah, that's it. Because obviously, whenever people say about like, the whole Mount Rushmore and stuff, it's like, oh, Fedor and like Franklin stuff, and I'm like, I mean, yeah, like if I wanted to, I could go back on Fight Plus and watch every single one of their fights, but it's to inform myself on how good they were. But again, you got to put it into context. I wasn't around when they were big, so I
Yeah.
could only go off, who was big when I started watching it. And like you said, I kind of got into it, 2015 and stuff. So a lot of these, if I don't say that, I don't know, Randy Couture is the best like heavyweight ever in the UFC. People, oh, you're a casual, like, do you not know that he did this and that? I'm like, well, I mean, yes, I know it because I can look on Wikipedia, but no, I didn't watch it because I was about 8 years old, like it's again, like you said, people don't really get into MMA that young, and you forget when. I guess obviously Brock was there before like Ronda and stuff, but it was early days. I was watching football. I wasn't watching MMA.
I think plus you lose some of the context too. Like you mentioned Michael Bisping winning the belt. For people that weren't watching when it happened
Mm,
live, I think that's still one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Just, I remember right to the stomach, his famous left hook
yeah.
Larry over the shoulder. Like at the time, you're like, this is the craziest shit I've ever seen. But for people
Mm,
that didn't watch it at the time with the right context, it's like, oh yeah, he was champion. Nah, you don't like I saw him on the Mount Rushmore thing. I thought that was a little weird, but just remembering like just the odds of him becoming champion at the time, like if you weren't around,
mm.
you don't have that kind of context.
Yeah, for sure. I even think like, I know obviously I wasn't watching it when it was, but like for example, I don't know, like Verdum and Fedor, like
Yeah.
everyone like if I watch that now, I'll be like, whoa, like yeah, like I know Fedor like because I've looked at him, but I never really watched any fights. Whereas like if I was watching that live, it would probably be the exact same as Bisping and Rockhold. You've got a guy who's like seemingly unbeatable, like best, middleweight, and then you got someone like Bisping who, yeah, he always fails like whenever he fights someone good, and then he knocks him out in the first round on like what, like 2 weeks notice. It
Yeah.
just does. That's the thing. People looking at that fight now would be like, oh yeah, I know like Bisping knocked out Rockhold, but like yeah, but do you really know like how he did it? 2 weeks notice. Everyone would almost laugh at Bisping being champion. And now it's the same
Yeah.
thing with Fedor because we didn't, we know that it was a massive upset, but we don't know how big it was in that actual time it happened.
My favorite thing about Michael Bisping winning the belt has to be that post-fight press conference when he showed
Mm.
up with his bucket of beers, and I think that was the last time they let everybody be at the same press conference. That was
Oh yeah.
incredible. That might have been even
Mm,
better than the fight. Just he's sitting there
mm,
drunk off his ass, just talking shit. I mean, I just remember thinking like, this is the most incredible thing I've ever seen.
mm. Do you know what? That's one thing. Like you said, we got into MMA at the right time. Obviously, I was still watching like all of those I'd watch on YouTube, but now like I'm planning to go to events and stuff. Like if I could be in like that room, like with say a crazy event like that, watching all the fighters, like because obviously now it's just one by one.
Yeah.
Half the time you're waiting like half an hour in between the fighters. It's like it's not the same. And you've got like Dana in the front. It's like literally looking at it now. We didn't really appreciate it when it's happening. It's just normal. Like to have that now, especially like say for example a big card. I don't know, like 217. I think they actually got rid of. I don't even know if they had some still by then. But like like imagine seeing like GSP, Bisping, Rose, and all that, and being able to just ask questions to whoever. Whereas now it's just one by one. So I wish I was like being able to cover events when I had. It's almost just like seeing everyone. You got like spoiled for choice.
Speaking of covering events, man, we have some. Well, I mean, I'm not 100% sure yet, but I know you have some exciting stuff coming up. Like it's
Mm,
crazy. Like everybody's just getting thrown right into the deep end.
yeah, I'll be going to 272 next month. So it's actually crazy. Again, people probably call me a casual. It's my first UFC event ever, which is crazy. Again, most people will not say going to their first UFC event, they're going to cover it, which is again lucky, kind of crazy. But it has I have supposed to been going to ones in the past. Like I was supposed to go to UFC London 2018 or 19, I think, with MMA latest. Then shock what happens. MMA latest collapsed, so I didn't get to go. Then pandemic, etc. Everyone knows about that. But yeah, it's crazy. I was just kind of like, I really want to just cover an event. And I was like, do you know what? Let's see what's going on. It was supposed to be 273 because again, the whole location was up in the air. And I was like, do you know what, we'll go this 272, and I think was supposed to, there were rumors it was going to take place in New York and stuff. And then it got put in Vegas, and I was like, well, who's the headline going to be? And I saw it was Colby Masvidal. I was like, oh my God, like, do you know what? I just want to go to this. Like, this will be awesome. So thankfully I've been sitting here for like 2 weeks thinking like, obviously it's a really good fight, but you know how things go. If that fight does, fingers crossed it doesn't, touch wood, if that fight like gets cancelled, that card is like all weak, especially now that, obviously Fiziev RDA got made. But imagine if that didn't, like, you would
Yeah.
literally have, I think, like, oh, what? I mean, no disrespect to them, like Kevin Holland and Alex Oliveira headlining a pay-per-view. Like,
Yeah.
what? Like, that's crazy. But yeah, so that would be awesome to go to. I know you're trying to go to ones of your own. Hopefully, things will get approved. But
I mean, I didn't want to be like that guy that's like, trying to cover these UFC events and
mhm,
people are looking at him like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you never covered anything. But being in
yeah,
France, we had nothing. People were like, go to
hmm
your regional show. The regional show is in a back alley behind a bar. Like, yeah, I can't go cover that. So, but this one I saw was in Jacksonville. I was like, Jacksonville is only 7 hours. I'm willing to drive. And I was like, fuck it. I mean, but if I go, like, I'm not going to be one of those, you're going to know I'm there. Like, I'm going to go to the fighter
mm,
hotel if I can figure it out, try to get
mm,
interviews. Like, I'm going to maximize that whole week if I can. Like,
mm,
even though it makes me nervous, because there's a difference between doing stuff on Skype and standing in
yeah.
front of a guy with your mic shaking in your hand, like, "Oh, I'm Lucas." Like,
Yeah.
it scares me, but we have to get out there. We're kind of people that live on the internet. Like, people haven't
Mm.
seen us at these events, but it's so important.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like that is it because it takes even with doing these, it takes a while to get set up to these, let alone doing it in person. Like imagine, I've been to Bama, but I didn't really do, the whole like video interviews and stuff. Like imagine trying to set up a tripod and it's not going to plan. On here, you just click a few buttons. Like in there, it's like it's pressure, it is. But and again, to a lot of people who do it regularly, they're like, it's no pressure. You just tell them to like, oh, can you just give me 2 minutes? But like for me, saying like if I had Colby there, I'd be like, yeah, just give me 2 minutes. I just need to sort my camera out. Like I'm wasting his time.
Yeah.
It's pressure. But again, maybe for the people who do this on a regular, you get to know people, and it's like doing these. It's not as intense as it was when we started. So, but that's like it. You just got to put yourself in the deep end, and there is literally no better way of getting experience than going to it. I might go to the one next month and have a complete cock up and ask Dana like a wrong question and him call me an idiot. But then be made to laugh and stock of it. But I mean, it's better than not going at all.
I was looking at UFC 243, like some of the people that you might see, and that if you can like jump on certain people to get 5 minutes with them, there's gonna be some crazy people. There's gonna be Eugene Behrman, so that's gonna be my
Mm.
time to confront him. Like it's
Oh
Lucas.
yeah.
He's gonna be there. Joe Rogan's gonna be there. I mean that one. I
Mm,
mean but shit. I mean if you can be the guy who grabs them, go for it. But
mm,
there's a lot of people where it's like I have to think like I want to maximize it to make sure that it's memorable and that I don't fuck it up. Most importantly.
mm. Yeah, no, that is it. And I feel like, especially with if you do go 273, like it's a lot to take in because imagine if like you're trying to interview. There's like what four champions on that
Yeah,
card.
it's
Well, like no,
stacked.
four, two title fights. So like
Yeah.
trying to fit all that in, like if you're like, oh, I need to interview this guy and then jump to the next one and like getting all the stuff set up. Because again, like even coming on here, like I come in like 5-10 minutes before, make sure my setup's good. Like sometimes you don't get that luxury in person. You're rushed for choice. You got to set things up and stuff. But like you said, it is pressure, and you just gotta go and do it. It would be nervous. I am kind of nervous for going there, but it will be fun.
Have you thought about how you're gonna dress? Like, I assume we're not gonna see the tank top and the guns out, but are you gonna go the schmo route? Like, have you thought about what you're gonna wear?
Yeah, I've got some like massive, like, yellow, like funky glasses. I'm just gonna wear probably just a shirt, shirt, trousers, no John Morgan blue polo. But,
Ah,
for the people who don't know, I know he only does that so his son can see him on telly. So obviously he's got a cop out on that one. But
yep.
yeah, like I'll just dress to impress. I'm only taking a small suitcase, so it'll probably be creased like on every angle. But no, yeah, I'll just go, given it's my first UFC event, I will make an effort. It's the least thing I could do, let alone because my interviews will probably be bad and I'll probably like, interview someone like that. So we'll at least we'll dress the part. That's all I can do.
I thought about it, but every time I do something the first time, I fail spectacularly. So it's like, imagine you're interviewing like the Korean Zombie or Alex Volkanovski, and you fuck that up on camera, and you're dressed like
Mm,
shit. Like, you're forever gonna be that guy that did that shitty ass interview. So it just, I know it's putting pressure on myself and stuff, but you definitely think like, you want to make waves so people remember you, but you don't want to make too many waves. They remember you for the wrong
Yeah.
stuff.
No, I know. Yeah, that's it. I mean, I don't really like I like have a content plan out there, but obviously, I have a plan of what I'm going to do and like, get a report, hopefully get a scrum. But when I'm there, things can go completely different because, like we said, online, it's very simple. I organize an interview, we got exact time and stuff. It's fight week, yeah, we've been doing this long enough to know things do not often go to plan.
No.
So you can only plan for so much, but at least that's the least you can do on my behalf. Like all the fighters on the card, I just want to, because you never know who you're going to bump into. I might bump into Colby and only get 1 minute, and then someone like Alex, Oliveira, and he might have like 20 minutes free, and I'm like, oh my god, why did I not put notes down? Like, even though it's not a big name, you got like a UFC fighter like Alex Oliveira, and I've not even planned it. So like, my whole thing is like, right, like I want to try and get as much planned as I've done for all these fights on the card, because you never know who you're going to get time with.
And the other thing too is, a lot of people, they mention it too. That's where you make connections. You know what I mean? Even
Hmm.
with just other
Hmm.
people in the industry. Obviously, you're on top of the mountain in terms of outlets. Like, you're beyond the MMA industry. It's like, oh, Bloody Elbow, never heard of him. But even that, it's like, you want to make sure your colleagues aren't like, look at this doofus asking that dumbass question. You want to make
Yeah.
sure people respect you when you're done with it.
Yeah, no, I guess that does come with being like a place like the Mirror, but that's it. I think, like I said, you can only prepare for that so much, and the whole way you're not going to be seen like a doofus, like you say, is you might mess something up, like a camera might be blurry or something, that happens. But like the preparation for the questions, I think, is one of the most important things, because there's been some like infamous ones like a UFC vets, and you can kind of tell who like the reporters are and reporters aren't. I remember once at like UFC 195, some guy thought Albert Tumanov was like Robbie Lawler, and I was just like, oh
He
my,
got
and then
called out by Dana White. Like,
oh,
that's the worst. Oh man,
yeah.
because he could have let it slide. He was like, "Oh no," and Dana White's like, "Hold on." Oh, that's it. He was gonna end your career right there.
Yeah, for speaking about being called out by Dana White, my friend and colleague I wrote with Donna, like we were talking before, and we were like, why has no one asked Dana about this like Jake Paul diss track? And he was like, we thought he was flying out for he covered it in Houston, and he only flied out on the day, and he was like, he was just expecting someone to ask him about it at the pre-fight press conference because he wasn't there, and no one asked him it. So obviously after the fight, he was like, excuse me. He was like, oh, I have to sneak in this question here because it's a big thing. This
Yeah.
track got like over 3 million views. The whole Jake Paul thing is relevant now. Obviously, the fights have just happened, so you don't just get the mic and be like, "What do you think of it?" He tried to kind of get it in at the end, like smoothly, and it was funny because Dana was like, "I'm sure you people have seen it," but Dana was like, "No, I've not seen it. Whether he has or not, I don't know." And and then he kind of called Donna out on it, like, "Oh, like Donna said it was intense," and he was like, "Oh, what does intense
Oh
mean?"
yeah, right.
Yeah, that was like, yeah, that
He
was
was
Don.
like,
That was
"Did
my
you like
stuff.
it?" That's like, "Oh no,
Yeah,
what are you saying?"
it kind of put Don on the spot, and he was just like, yeah, it's good, like, and then he was like, I think you're full of shit. And to be fair, Donna and Dana, like, you could kind of tell it was jokingly, like, it wasn't intense, like he was like cussing him and stuff. He was kind of laughing it off and stuff. But that's it. Because like, I don't know if I'd have the balls to ask Dana, like, oh, what did you think of this diss tape in which Jake Paul was saying that you sniff cocaine and stuff? Like, that's just like, it's pretty ballsy. But again, it's just how you word it and stuff. You didn't really ask it like half-heartedly. It was pretty jokey. But again, it's doing your research, like I said. Whether I'll ask Dana something like that, I don't know.
I think the worst part is when they ask you a question because you're not thinking
Oh
like I have to
God, yeah,
answer stuff. So it's like, "Oh, did you think it was good?" Holy shit,
yeah,
I have to answer a question. I don't. And plus,
yeah,
what are you gonna say to Dana? Oh, it was dope. I mean, it was
yeah,
awesome how
yeah,
he
yeah. I
portrayed you,
know.
and like, what are you gonna
Yeah.
say? Oh, it's crap. You're sucking up to the boss. Like, there's no good answer
Yeah,
aside from just
exactly. There is
disappearing.
literally no good answer. And even if you say like, "Oh, it doesn't matter," like it's hostile. If you're like, "Oh, it doesn't matter what I'm asking you," then you think like, "Oh my god, I just came off really like hostile
Yeah.
to the UFC president in like what could be my own interview if he doesn't like me." And then, like you said, if you say yes, like it's offensive, and if you say no, you're sucking up to him. So what are you gonna do? Just say nothing? Like you have to say something, and it's not like you're like, "Hold on, let me think." You need to answer on the spot, because we ask all the questions. We don't think. You only prepare for answers. You don't prepare for someone throwing it back on you. But so Dana was quite good at that half. It would have thrown me off.
I was watching it live and I was like, I don't know what I would have said. I mean, I watched it
Mm,
once briefly. I didn't really give a fuck about it. Like, I didn't think that much whether I liked it or not. I was
yeah.
like, okay, that was a thing I had to watch for my job. But you asked me, did you like it? I don't know. I don't
Oh
know.
no,
And on
that's
the
literally
spot,
yeah.
I don't
I
know.
don't know. I don't know what I would have said. I would have probably just said like I mean again, it's the thing I'm thinking right now. Like you don't
Yeah.
get that time to think. You just have to answer straight away. And you could say something, but I did not mean to say that. So Donna handled it good. It was quite funny. So
Hey, he's got a highlight forever though. He's gonna have that back and
Yeah,
forth with Dana
exactly.
White where he asked him, and you guys are
Mhm.
gonna give him shit for it forever.
Yeah, exactly. And it all just comes of having like the balls to ask the question. I mean, obviously there's been a few like press conferences recently. I've noticed, I don't know really, like I think the 271 and the 271 press conference, I see like a lot of the comments, journalists are getting like slated for the questions they're asking,
Yeah.
like who are these reporters and stuff, and like half of me agrees with them. But again, it just like as much as some of the questions I'm like, yeah, why would you ask that? Like you have to have the balls to ask a question. Like I
Yeah.
can't go to the one at 272 and think like, oh my God, all these YouTube comments are saying like these reporters are bad. I need to ask the right question. Like there's gonna be that no matter what you ask. Like if for example, if no one asked Dana about that Jake Paul diss track, I guarantee you there'd be comments like, lol, imagine no one's asking about the Jake Paul. They're all like, be silenced by Dana and stuff. These reporters need to do their job. So literally, like you said, you can't win. You ask about relevant stuff like that, and they're like, "Oh my God, like, why you talk about this?" And then you don't, and it's like you're sucking up to Dana. So,
Well, there's a difference between relevant stuff and like I don't want to call them out, but kind of like Helen Yee and all those people asking about like, can you tell us about the NFT deals and about this
oh
new
yeah,
sponsor? It's like,
mm-mm.
look, like we respect your work in the industry, but when you do shit like that, it's like, I mean, come on, who gives a shit about the
Mm.
sponsors? Like, and even I forgot who it was where they were like, he gave Dana White a layup. And Dana White was like,
Oh
nah, man,
yeah,
let's talk
oh.
about the fights. Like, man, what are you doing? Like that. For
Mm.
me, I can understand people get mad at stuff like that.
Yeah, I remember watching that. I think that was I think it was before the Ngannou one because that's when they announced it, and he was kind of like, it was a wordy question as well. He's like,
Yeah.
you've announced this NFT deal, and I was just like, oh my God. I was like, I don't know. I was thinking like, how is Dana going to answer this? Like, because obviously these press conferences about fighting, like I didn't expect Dana to go off some random thing, but he actually completely shot it down. Like that's double worse for the reporter. Like if the reporter would have like got a really good answer, then he'd be like buddy buddy with Dana, like yes, like this Dana answered my question. Maybe he thinks it's good, but he got shot down. I must be like gut wrenching because again, why like I know the NFT thing. It's news, fair enough. It's news, but that's all I think it is. It's not like it's not major news. It's an NFT deal and stuff. Like people want to know about the fights. They don't really want to know about. They obviously they want to know what it is, and that's it. Move on. At least in my opinion. So like when everyone was following up those NFT questions, it was a bit weird.
I had someone recently reach out to me for, I guess Charles Oliveira's releasing an NFT thing. And they're
I
like,
had that
hey,
as well. Yeah, I had that
he
as well.
he was like, hey, can you cover this for it and stuff? And so I'm thinking like, what do you want me to cover? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like it's,
yeah.
so I told him, I was like, you know what? If you can give me some exclusive quotes from Charles, I was like, I'm sure I can figure it out a way. And he goes, yeah, he gave us these quotes for the release. I was like, yeah, but that's not exclusive. And here's
Yeah.
some more quotes he gave someone else. I just left him on red. I was like, look, that's not what exclusive means. Like, I can try to work with you, but you got
Mm,
to do better than what am I going to headline it? Charles
yeah.
Oliveira releases crazy
Mhm.
NFTs. Like, who gives a shit?
Yeah, like, obviously, when the UFC released their NFT thing, I remember I wrote on it, and the whole thing I did was because they said the fighters will get 50% of the
Yeah.
sales. So I'm like, right, boom. Like, what's a big talking point at the minute? Fighter pay. Like, I don't really know how again, it's just announced, but like, fighters are getting money from these NFTs. And they're getting 50%, which is a lot more than the 16% revenue they get or whatever. So that's a story there. But like you said, if someone just DMs me saying Charles Oliveira is releasing NFT, maybe like I said, if we were back at no disrespect, like the Cage Pages days,
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh my God, this guy's a DM me like quickly, quickly. But
Yeah.
like again, how is like if you wrote that up now, if I wrote that up, it would definitely just be PR because like again,
Yeah.
it's how is that really news? Like they can drop that on their own site or his own Instagram page or something, but it's not really something for us to cover. It. No one else is going to really care about that unless you're like a massive fan of Charles Oliveira. So what can you do?
Man, we've gone over an hour here. Our first time talking face or screen to screen, I guess.
Mm,
I guess people would be surprised, man. Listen, to wrap things up, plug your outlet, plug your work, social media, because you're big time now, man. People already know
ah,
how to find you, but you got stuff to plug, man.
As I always joke around with Lucas, you can follow my verified no, being humble. My Twitter account is at Harry Davies 14, and in my bio there's a link to my author profile for the Mirror. So all my work is on there. My DMs are open. So if you have any questions, yeah, give me a shout. And pleasure to be on the podcast. It's kind of crazy. People won't know, like we said, Lucas. It's been literally like you wouldn't think it's been 6-7 years since we spoke screen to screen, but yeah. We'll have to get it on for another one, like you said, maybe a special episode, like a 50 or a 69 or 100, and we'll do it.
For sure, man. You'll be booked for one of them. I got you. But
Yes.
listen, for the people that made it to the end, I like to give a special shout out because nobody watches till the end. So, holy shit, you made it to the end. Appreciate you. Thumbs up. That helps a lot. Subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll see you guys.